Hello, everybody. Welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well and that you're all having an absolutely incredible day. I am very excited to see the answers for this one. The question of the day is, if I gave you 100,000 if I gave you 100,000 XRP, would you hold it? Or would you sell it? I can only imagine what a lot of people have to say. And it's because, XRP might do a 10x in price. That's the general idea behind it. And without any further ado, let's jump right into it. As always, there's a lot happening in this space at the exact same time. So we're going to try and cover as much as we possibly can. Welcome back to the optimism side of the cryptocurrency market. I don't know what happened, but for some reason over the course of the last week or two, everyone has gotten incredibly more optimistic about the market and where things are going to be going. In one of the more popular stories, Anthony Pompliano is in the news. He used to be really heavily in the news in 2020, 2021. A lot of people used to just call him Pomp. I don't know if that was him telling them to call him that or if people just started calling him that. He used to be one of the main figureheads. He was kind of like the Jack Dorsey, the Novogratz, one one of those people who would always pop up and talk about the market, where things were going to go, how much he was investing, what his other friends were investing, and it kind of would get the market all riled up. When he was lightly the liaison between us and institutions. So he would tell us, oh, I have, reason to believe that this institution is looking into the market, or this company might be trying to buy $30 million worth of Bitcoin. That kind of thing hasn't been in the news a lot the last 2 years or so, but he's back. Anthony Pompliano, the founder of Pomp Investments, was on CNBC's Squawk Box, still don't know why it's called that, to share his insights on the spot Bitcoin ETF market and the broader state of Bitcoin. We're also going to be going over a lot of numbers because a lot of really crazy stuff has been happening over the course of the last few weeks. Speaking with the show's co-anchor, Andrew Ross Sorkin, Pompliano delivered a compelling analysis that not only underscores Wall Street's growing infatuation with Bitcoin, but also heralds a bullish future for the world's premier cryptocurrency. We've gotten for a while a lot of news and information from people who had ties to Wall Street and other institutions, exactly how much they like the space, but they never really openly said it. This is why we saw such a huge amount of interest for the Bitcoin ETFs as they were being launched and also before, and also being covered on TV and stuff like that, because it was more or less the thing that institutions were waiting for them to be able to securitizedly get into Bitcoin. Pompliano's discussion kicked off with a bold declaration. He said Wall Street doesn't just like Bitcoin, they love Bitcoin. The statement is backed by the success of the recent spot Bitcoin ETF launches, with BlackRock and Fidelity funds each amassing $3 billion in record time, marking an historic first for the ETF landscape. For those of you who was it the last video or the video before? I remember definitely talking about this. These ETFs, for those of you who weren't here, what do I even say for this? Of all the ETFs that have launched in the last year, and also so that is to say this year and the year before, and also that have ever been launched and that are currently launched, think about that. Keep that all into context. If you want, or if it behooves you, you can watch one of my recent videos where I was actually talking about it. BlackRock's ETF alone has surpassed 99.98% of all other ETFs that have ever been launched. Ever. And that was over the course of 5 weeks. We're seeing a tremendous amount of money moving into these ETFs in a very, very short period of time, even before we've actually even gotten to the halving, which is the really interesting part, because we normally wouldn't see heavy optimism or movements into the market until around a week or two around the halving. But now we're seeing all this like extra energy with people talking about that we might go to 70,000 and or 100,000 just before or at the actual halving. It's because of all the money that's being pumped into the market, as well as into the ETF space as well. The significant inflows into these funds, according to Pompliano, are a testament to Bitcoin's undeniable allure among institutional investors. People believe that Bitcoin, over the course of the next decade, the next 12 years, and I say 12 because of 3 halvings, there are estimates of a multi-million-dollar Bitcoin. If people are able to get in the $40,000, $50,000 range, and this thing ends up completely doing a 40x into $1 to $2 million over the course of 12 years, of course, they're going to be running to it. It is the best performing asset ever. Look it up. I mentioned it before. I know that there's always one skeptic. Regardless of what you say or what proof you might have or what information you might give them, there's always going to be one who's like, I don't know. The numbers don't match. You can look it up. Please, for the love of goodness, Google it. It is the best performing asset ever. It is up by millions of percent. We've also had indications for a while. For some reason, 2014 was the number. We've also had indications that a lot of these institutions have actually been in the space since 2014, but they were simply dabbling. They were, lightly looking at the market, maybe putting some money into it. But now it looks like a lot of people have gotten more serious. And this is only within the last couple of weeks, we've seen a huge amount of excitement, and we haven't even gotten to the halving or after the actual halving situation. So everyone's kind of, sitting there wondering, like, what is to come with a lot of this market. One of the most striking points Pompliano made was regarding the demand-supply imbalance in the Bitcoin market. This is going to hurt a lot of people. I'm not joking. This isn't me being weird or excessive or all the other crazy things that I say in a lot of videos. You don't understand how little Bitcoin that there actually is out there. You've been duped, especially by many other YouTubers who continue to tell you to buy these other crappy coins. I'm not sure why they do it. Maybe they want attention. Maybe I'm not going to put my tinfoil hat on. Maybe something is simply going on with them. When you talk about the actual amount of Bitcoin that there is and that there isn't in the market, it is incredibly striking. When we know these actual numbers, how much is being accumulated and how much is leaving the liquidity pool, the available amount for people to be able to buy on a daily basis. We've gone over before, one of the really strong ideas right now is how much Bitcoin is being created per day. This ends up being a conversation every single time that there is a halving, simply because people like to go over it and say, hey, there's 3,600 Bitcoin being created every single day. Isn't that crazy? There's 1,800 Bitcoin that's being created every single day. Can you believe it? There's 900 Bitcoin being created per day. Remember the 3,600? Now it's only 900. Where we're going is only 450 Bitcoin per day. As I've mentioned before, the people who mine Bitcoin, one of the most ridiculous misconceptions is that these people are mining Bitcoin and then selling all of it onto the market. No, they're mining the Bitcoin to keep for themselves. They sell a portion of to be able to keep the lights on. You have to pay the electricity bills because sometimes, once again, their electricity bills are like $180,000 for these gigantic warehouses. This is why the last couple of years we've seen a huge push towards renewable energy sources to be able to mine Bitcoin. We see a lot of people moving to hydropower and solar power in the UAE and all these other things. People are trying to look for cheaper sources to be able to keep more of their Bitcoin. They're mining the Bitcoin to keep for themselves. So let's say over the course of a day, of course, usually you pay your energy bill at the end of the month, but for simplicity's sake, let's say there's 450 Bitcoin mined 900 Bitcoin mined every single day, which is where we currently are. Now, let's say for daily sake, they have to sell off around 50 to 100 Bitcoin per day on average to be able to keep the lights on, which leaves 800 for them and their investors who are mining these coins and also want to keep them for themselves. It is unbelievable to think that 900 Bitcoin are being mined and then 900 new Bitcoin are hitting the market every single day. Like, we know for a fact that it's not happening. Like, that's not a thing, especially as Bitcoin's price goes up. People who are mining, they sell even less. They only sell what they need to for electricity's sake. So let's say we have 900 Bitcoin created per day, and maybe 100 of those are actually relinquished and sold back onto the market to keep the lights on. Keep all of that in mind. One of the most striking points Pompliano made was regarding the demand-supply imbalance in the Bitcoin market. With net inflows into Bitcoin ETFs reaching $500 million, and considering the daily incoming supply of Bitcoin is capped at 900 Bitcoin, this equates to around $40 to $45 million. The $45 million worth of Bitcoin that is created per day, 500 million is being purchased daily for the ETFs. That is more than a 10x of the actual supply. We got news before, it was about 10 days ago, somewhere around there. As the 900 Bitcoin are being created every day, 9,000 are being purchased by the ETF creators. Remember the numbers that we said before? If 900 are created per day and maybe 100 actually enters the market, they're buying around 120x or more of the amount of Bitcoin that actually goes onto the market. Now, also remember, they're not the only ones buying. If BlackRock, Fidelity, iShares, and all these other names are buying up more than 10x of what's created, not what even hits the market. What is created? What actually hits the market, they're buying a whole bunch more than that. Now keep in mind, as I've said in many other videos, there's still you and your friends and your family and other investors and other institutions and banks who were all getting into this at the exact same time. BlackRock and Fidelity aren't the only people who are buying. Is a whole bunch of buying pressure behind the scenes as well. 900 new Bitcoin created every single day. It equates to $40 million. There's $500 million in daily inflows into the ETFs. That's an overwhelming demand outstripping the new supply by 12.5 times. ETF suppliers are buying 12.5 times daily more than is actually created. It is literally impossible for me to stress this more. Like, the veins in my head are already popping. This is what I said is going to hurt a lot of people. It's not a joke. We are entering this really strange time in history where we can see everything around us forming and shaping vastly different than we had ever experienced in our life already. I watched a documentary, as I always do, and they were talking to, and I want to say air quote, young people, anywhere from around 21 to around 35, maybe like just hitting 40. And they were asking them like the prospects that they had for the future. And if they went to university, did not go, if they did go, what kind of job do they have now? And many of them, of course, didn't have good paying jobs. Many of them were gig economy workers and all these other things. And they were saying that they felt lied to. Their entire lives, they had been told Go to school, keep your head down, find any job and you'll work there for the rest of your life. You'll have enough money to be able to buy a house. You'll buy a house somewhere, you'll live the good life, and then you retire at 65. And that life does not exist. And that's warped. That's been warped dramatically in the last 15 to 20 years. Because I was also one of those kids who was told the exact same thing. Go to school till you're 18, go to university. It doesn't matter if you get into debt, you're going to find a really good job because you have a university degree. Get a good paying job. You'll work there until you're 65. You'll have a huge amount of job security. You'll get a house at some point. You'll buy the house. You'll live there, be happy. You'll retire at 60 something. None of that exists. The world that we have around us right now is rapidly being reshaped because of economic policies that we've been through and have had to live through. How long has it been? It's almost been 80 years or something like that. The system around us is actively crumbling, not to terrify you, but, watch some documentaries. Even the other day, for those of you who weren't here for that video, we heard from the head of the Fed, Jerome Powell, the guy who literally prints money, the top of the people who print money. He was like, something's not right. I think it was a 60 Minutes interview. You can go find it and watch it. It's pretty dramatic. He's like, yeah, we have way too much debt. He's like, we're borrowing from future generations. The system is going to break unless we stop doing this. And he looked mortified as he was saying it. To me, now I'll give it to you this way. I've been doing this channel every day for 8 years. Every single day. For those of you who don't remember the original year or two of the channel, I used to make 2 or 3 videos a day. I had a lot more energy, a lot more energy flowing through my veins back then. 2 or 3 videos a day. I've absorbed a huge concentration of the amount of news within this space. I don't consider myself an authority figure, but it's more how a lot of times I keep making sure to tell all of you, I'm well, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 8 months ago, a year and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, it's because all this news is bouncing around in my head constantly. All the stuff that we've been through is all in my head all over the place. So I have some kind of not a say, but I've seen the signs written on the wall for a very long time. Back in 2018, when we started to hear that these people had been in the market since 2014. One of my very first videos, if you can still find it, if it's even still there, I don't know, whatever, where there was it was the guy from Virgin Airlines. And there was some article, maybe you can Google it, where he was having a secret meeting on one of his secret islands where he just had a bunch of Bitcoin developers. And I made a video and I was like, doesn't that seem weird? Why would you do that? Why not have it in a public space? Why have it on your private island? And then that got me into I was like, what exactly is going on with Bitcoin? Why would you have something like that? And the only reason why we found out that news is because apparently someone spoke. Someone who was there was yeah, dude, it was a crazy weekend. And they kind of not told everything that happened, but they told kind of why they were there. And it let me know for a while that something was definitely changing. We kept on hearing, even the whole Jamie Dimon thing, the whole Warren Buffett, constantly over and over talking negatively about Bitcoin. And I always said, and I still think this, why did they spend so much time talking negatively about Bitcoin? You know how many other assets there are out there? You know how many other coins? Why didn't Warren Buffett and Jamie Dimon and all these other billionaires who eventually told us that they were actually in the market, why weren't they talking negative about XRP, about Ethereum, about all these other coins? Why focus and hone in on this one coin? Why did all these billionaires constantly over and over and over say, oh no, Bitcoin is only for scammers. I would never touch the thing. And then 2 years later, come out and say they would literally have interviews on CNBC and talk about it being the greatest asset ever. Yeah, we've been into the market for a while and we've been, accumulating. And I'm like, so you lied to everyone. That means you and all your other friends are also lying. And then we kept on hearing over and 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 over time again that all these people had been in the market. They had been buying up tons of Bitcoin. When I think about where this market is going, even over the course of it usually takes a huge shock to really draw people into our market. And I don't know if it's because we've been so conditioned to believe in the old system, to believe in the dollar, to believe in the euro, to believe in the yen, to believe in like an authoritative figure standing at the top of a hill screaming down at us. Like that's the thing that we have to do until we realize that our money not is compromised, but could have gone further. If you keep hearing every single day, work, get a job, you'll make good money. And then you look across the street and you see that these people who were telling you to get into this market for over the course of however many years, they're jumping up and down. They made hundreds of thousands of dollars because they got into the cryptocurrency space. And that's when people begin to like cross the water, cross the pond and stand over there. And then that cycle always begins once again, where these people, the people who cross the pond try and jump up and down to like dance with us, but they don't have any of the cryptocurrencies. So they begin accumulating as the market is going down after the market cycle's kind of done. And then they stand there and wait for the next market cycle. The next market cycle comes. We're all jumping up and down together. And then there's a whole bunch of other new people across the pond who are also then looking that they also want to jump up and down as well. I find it incredibly shocking how few people who are actually in the cryptocurrency space, I don't want to say how little faith they have. That's very like Star Wars-y. It is impossible. It must be, right. Like I'm not going crazy. It's nearly impossible for you to get this news and to hear this every single day and for you to not understand what's going on. I feel like in almost another like paradoxal kind of universe thing, if we heard every single day for 5, 6, 7 years that Litecoin was the best thing in the entire world, that XRP was going to $1 million in the next 3, 4, 5 years, I feel like more people would have paid attention. But it's something like maybe some really early scenario Bitcoin news that people like took to heart, and like a lot of people just don't want to believe in it for whatever reason. There's still a lot of people. You wouldn't believe the comment section sometimes, either here, stuff I read on Twitter, where I mentioned something about Bitcoin and people like, yeah, Bitcoin's very passe. Look at this coin. And I'm like, how don't you get it? How don't you, even just from like a mathematical standpoint, if we got news that every day there was 1,000, I don't know the number, if there was 1,000 Litecoin being created, but 15,000 was being purchased by 9 companies, I almost feel like people would pay more attention. You understand what I'm saying? It's this really weird. We have all the numbers in front of us, but I never feel the rumbling of the ground or even like the sentiment on Twitter. Like there'll be like an optimistic sentiment on Twitter based off of what Anthony Pompliano said, or based off of what Elon Musk said or did. Like the other day, Jack Dorsey wore a Bitcoin t-shirt to the Super Bowl and people were like, yeah. And I was like, you got riled up because Jack Dorsey wore a t-shirt to a football game, but of the Bitcoin that's being created per day, 12.5 times of it is being accumulated by a couple of companies. You get more riled up by hearing a celebrity say something or wearing something. It's the same exact thing. Like, what was it, a year or two ago? Maybe it was the last Super Bowl, where Elon Musk wore a Dogecoin t-shirt and Dogecoin went up that day. And I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? Like what kind of disconnect do you have from the actual world when you when you hear the news and you don't connect to it? It doesn't make any sense to you. You completely find it as something like, well, that's cool for those companies, as opposed to being like, wait, every single day this coin is in the news. The amount of accumulation has completely skyrocketed. We used to hear before, this used to actually have an impact on the market. When we would hear about the amount of Bitcoin that MicroStrategy had purchased, and people would also do calculations comparative to the day, and it would be like, well, 30% of all Bitcoin made per day or created per day was bought up by MicroStrategy. And people would go, oh, 30%, 1/3, that's crazy. How are they buying? And it's like, well, now it's 12.5 times. And the only people who seem to be paying attention are the people who are actually like into the ETFs or buying the ETFs themselves, or other wealthy people. Once again, that's not to say that other people aren't into it, but the vibe is off. You feel it. Yes? No? Is it just me? Maybe in my circle, maybe the information that I'm getting and that I'm seeing from like a lot of the stuff that's happening within the cryptocurrency space maybe just isn't translating the exact same way to me that I expected it kind of to. When I hear news like this, it sets off my brain in so many different directions. Like I can feel the neurons like completely reacting every single word that I say. We haven't gotten to the halving yet. We're not at the halving yet. We are not at the halving yet. And the amount of accumulation that's happening by these few companies is probably more than likely going to set us off to a $500,000 Bitcoin. That's why I said a lot of people are going to be very upset. It's going to be this very strong realization, these kind of like shoulda, woulda, couldas. Why did I not pay attention before? Why did I not buy? And once again, that's not financial advice. If you think that it is, please go somewhere else. I don't know what to tell you at this point if you've been watching this channel for a while. But I don't get it. I don't understand how we can have this news all the time. So one portion of the news is that of the 900 created per day, around 11,000 is actually being accumulated by these companies on a daily basis. This news also ties directly into it. And once again, this is public knowledge. I'm not bringing you some kind of underground thing that took me weeks and months to find, and I collected it into one video to be like, yeah, now the world knows. No, this is all public stuff that people should be talking about more, because it's going to dictate the actual movements of the market and propel us in a very specific direction that I think a lot of people have not prepared themselves for. The person who wrote this article, I won't show their name, but writing might not be your thing. They keep referring to the ETFs. They literally keep writing the word newborn, and it drives me absolutely insane to see it over and over. The news is, it says after 1 month of trading, 4 weeks, the 9 spot ETFs now hold more than 200,000 Bitcoin. 200,000 Bitcoin. Do you remember the numbers? The first week or so? No. The first couple of days, we had news that they had around like 15,000 Bitcoin. Then it was 30, then it was 37,000, then it was 50, it was like 68,000 or somewhere around there. And then we got to 95,000. And I remember that video, I was like, it took them 2.5, 3 weeks to get 95,000 Bitcoin in their custody. Do you know how much money 95,000 Bitcoin? You know how much money that is? Can you conceptualize if you and 9 of your friends held hands and you had enough money to get 95,000 Bitcoin? The news then went to 100,000 to 105,000. These companies now hold 200,000 Bitcoin in a month. 1 month. Do you remember, for those of you who were here, when we first got indications of how much they were buying in about a good 10, 15, 20 days from this moment at the time of you watching this video? There was we had that news before of the 900 being created per day, the 900 coins. It was the guy, he's the head of Blockstream. Alex, I can't remember his name. The guy who runs Blockstream right now, he literally said, if you look at these numbers back then, he said they're buying 10 times as much Bitcoin as being created per day. He said their estimates are showing that the increase is constantly happening. So more than just the 10x, they're buying even more every single day, which I guess is how we got to the 12.5. He said by the halving, he was expecting them to buy around 20x the amount of Bitcoin that was being created per day. Per day, 20x. And he said the crazy part is that the halving happens. We go from 900 to 450 Bitcoin being created per day. That even doubles it further because like their appetite for buying it won't get cut in half. They're going to continue buying knowing that there's actually even less than there was before. When we had that video, I sat here and I said, the realistic number of actual liquid, movable, moving around Bitcoin for 8 billion people is probably around 500,600, maybe 700,000 Bitcoin. Maybe. I'm not going to go over these specifics. Please watch the other videos. That would take far too long for me to explain all the numbers. Is probably around 600,000, 700,000 Bitcoin based off of the numbers that we got from Santiment and that we got from Glassnode. 200,000 Bitcoin in a month means that by the time we get to the middle of March, they have 400,000 Bitcoin. By the time we get to the middle of April, which is when the halving happens, they would then essentially have all the liquid supply of Bitcoin that's out there for everyone. You know that after the halving, the price goes up, right? And it tends to go up for like a good year and a half. Remember that other guy? It wasn't Samson Mao. There was someone who said that he thinks that we might be done with cycles. And at the time, it sounded like a little bit weird. We discussed it on the channel. The idea basically being is that he said the amount of accumulation in the institutions who are in the space right now, he thinks that any dips will be actually quite limited. So we know and have known a space where me and you are in the market. And a lot of times when the market goes up, there's like a really weird like crescendo kind of feeling, and then the market ends up going down, and then we find out that behind the scenes they're like smaller companies or micro strategy level companies who've been buying consistently over the course of 2 years. But that's only because there was no one to catch like the falling blockchain as it was falling until the prices got low enough and then they bought. But now we're in a whole different landscape. We're in a landscape where if the prices start falling, BlackRock is going to buy, Fidelity is going to buy, MicroStrategy is going to buy. When you get the supply cut in half and the dips remain limited because they end up being bought up. This is why we're getting all those numbers. People are projecting. They said if the buying continues in this way, if the amount of new people who keep getting into this market continues to be this way, we're in a whole different market already and people can't pay attention. This isn't 2027. This isn't 2029. These people are buying up all the available Bitcoin that there is to buy for 8 billion people. That's how you get to $600,000 per Bitcoin next year. That's how you go over 100K this year. The buying that happens around the halving is always crazy. You constantly see the prices spiking. And we even had that from another person. They said these spikes are going to become more frequent. A lot of times you'll look at them and you go, well, who's buying that much? And they were saying that it won't even take that much money to actually move the price. Because if there's nothing to buy and it's very scarce, you buy a fragment of it, the price pops up. If there's 600, 700,000 left, and by the time we get to the end of April, these 9 companies are buying in this same way, there's almost nothing left. The people who end up selling are like, okay, cool. I want to cash out. I'm going to sell the news. Those coins are gone. Those coins disappear. You don't have that money anymore. You don't have that Bitcoin. Who wants to relinquish their Bitcoin? Who wants to give up their Bitcoin when Bitcoin goes to 100K, knowing that it's still 2024 and that Bitcoin is probably going to do like a 5, 6, 7x in price? Who's selling? Who ends up giving up their coins? The people who are day trading. People start day trading with all these coins back and forth and they click sell. They made a good $50,000 profit. The price keeps going up. Where are those coins going? Other people saw the new coins hit the market. Those coins are gone. Now imagine for a moment, we have this level of buying pressure forever. That's what I think no one's talking about. It's nice to talk about prices. It's nice to talk about the institutions who are in the space. Don't forget there are other countries who are also trying right now to legalize Bitcoin ETFs in their countries as well. We had like 2 or 3 who were like, no, we don't want the US one. So they're trying to like legalize like Bitcoin ETFs in South Korea and in Hong Kong and other countries, yada, 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 yada. When those get created, do you think they're only buying 1 coin a day? Do you think they're buying 10 to 15 coins a day? That is to say, comparative to the 18,000 being purchased by the US companies. You know, the Canadian companies are still buying as well, right? You know, the other ETF issuers are also still buying up. Like you can look at the numbers. Like you can look up the European and the Canadian, and I think the Australian ETF issuers and how much they also have as well. But like we can see them consistently buying. Then everyone else in the world is also buying. Something crazy is happening. Something absolutely bonkers is currently taking place. If it took one month for them to buy. Oh, also, it says it's somewhere around here as well. Hold on. Where is it? If I scroll down a little bit. Yeah. It says, to put that into context, the new ETFs now hold nearly 1% of Bitcoin's total supply. What if, now let's say, I'll even give you a more conservative one. Let's say that all the ETFs that are currently in the US slow down their selling so that we can get to 1% for all the ETFs on the planet. Everyone with me? Let's say, there's a slowdown, I'm going down lower numbers, and all the other ETFs pick up the pace, and we get to 1% every single month. It would take a year, less than a year, to get them to have more than 10% of Bitcoin's total supply. What if the US ones don't slow down? What if they have 200,000 now, and in a year, they have 1.2 million Bitcoin? What does that do to the price? What does that do to the FOMO that you and your friends and your family have? Do you buy more? Do you sit there and go, no, I'm content with what I have? What does that do to institutions? Sorry. What does that do to everyone else who already wanted more? I see the comments all the time here, especially when we had certain prices. People always say, no, like I need lower prices so that I can buy more. If prices go up, people tend to also buy more as well, of the expectation that prices might continue to rise higher. If you have expectations that it can rise to 70,000 and 100K, and you believe 500,000 is coming, and the price is 125,000, you'll probably still buy fragments of it, knowing that you're probably going to be able to 4 or 5x your money during this bull run. We haven't even gotten to 2028, 2032, or 2033 when we're expected to have a $10 million plus Bitcoin. The accumulation right now is staggering. And the fact that people are paying attention to Jack Dorsey wearing a t-shirt is unworldly. Like, I literally can't even put it into context how crazy all of this is right now, that all of this is happening, and the amount of people who refuse to pay attention. Now, it's one thing to not be in the market and kind of turn the digital cheek, but for people to be in this space and actively ignoring. We're going to have this news again. You better bet your bottom dollar. They have 200,000 Bitcoin. I give it a week or two. We're going to have this kind of crazy news again. Imagine when we get to March. And when we get to April, we're going to have another discussion. We're all going to sit here. We're all going to kumbaya because we're going to be like, they now have 400, 500,000 Bitcoin. As prices are moving up and people are wondering why things keep spiking, it's because there's not a lot left for normal people to buy. What a crazy time to be in this market. What an absolutely insane thing that we are all going through collectively at the exact same time. How many people, do you remember what was going on in 2020 and 2021 and why we started seeing these like crazy spikes in price for Bitcoin, it was because people, so the idea was, in essence, a lot of people were realizing that they don't have the money that they wanted at a certain age. They weren't as rich as they wanted to be. We've also had the discussion before where a lot of younger people are simply buying tons of luxury fashion and all this other stuff because they think that they'll never be able to actually own a home. So people are choosing to spend their money now, live the fast life because they're like, cool, well, at 65, I can't retire anyway. So why not enjoy life right now? What happens if these people collectively, and I mean even more so in America, it's probably over 100 million people, at least. What happens if these people realize that you put X amount of money into the market and you wait 5 years and you can maybe buy your own studio apartment, your own 1 bedroom? How many new people do you think that are going to jump into the market? Scratch that, move it on back. Down payment, 30-40% down payment. We live in a very tight economic world right now where things aren't looking too hot for a lot of people. I wonder when that shift is really going to hit a lot of people that they could have gotten into the market and then they end up getting into the market and accumulate as much as they possibly can in anticipation of a $1 million plus Bitcoin, because it's coming. Like, we all know that it's coming. And then we still, as I always say, have another 100 years of mining Bitcoin. By the time we get to 2032, the amount of Bitcoin being created per day is minuscule. It is literally almost nothing for 8 billion people on the planet. Oh boy, what a fantastic time ahead. Yeah. I do hope that you've all enjoyed. I do hope that you all are planning. I do hope that you all are doing something because it's getting real out here. I do hope you all enjoyed. I do hope you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. I do hope it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and or supporting. And I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.